Hello to everybody. I've been astonished about the situation of organic farming in Europe and globally for quite some time. For we have talking about it for decades, and still the percentage ratio, even though it's increasing, is relatively slow and not meeting the 20%, not to talk about going rapidly beyond that. And there must be something wrong in our system when it comes to common agricultural policy, our chemical legislation, our consumer protection, our pesticides regulation, our use of fertilizers and all that, when we are not getting it right. And of course international trade, just to mention Mercosur agreement as one example of it, are quite often as a structure and content not favoring national and European good production habits and higher prices. So why the organic farming is so important? It is not just a question, the matter of preferences. I prefer red instead of a blue, type of a question, or blueberries to strawberries. It is a question about seeking the sustainability on agriculture. That means circularity in the treatment of the land, the soil, and that actually keeps the soil living, a healthy ecosystem that can also bind CO2 out of the air. It is a question of fertilizers, nutrients, how you can base them on organic levels and organic models, and by that way not wasting a precious resource and causing other harmful impacts, like for the CO2 by transportation, or then the hazardous metals that quite often are commuted by the fertilizers, not to talk about nano and microplastics also. Okay, so we know somewhere the method, how you can be circular in nutrition cycle, how you can bind the CO2 back to the soil. You know how you can farm so that you can enhance the biodiversity. And you know how you can produce better quality, better tasting food. And you can actually treat animals better, and you can create a living and thriving sector of organic farming, of free range herding of animals. And that again, in some extent, can go to fisheries also. So, in Europe, I think that we should set the target of having 40% after 6 years organic farming. And the target should be 60% in public procurement. And actually, I think that we should use the public procurement as this kind of a pulling effect, how we increase the organic farming and its ratio. And the French initiative of setting standards and setting thresholds for organic production in public procurement is a good model, even though I would go in that kind of a direction gradually. So by 20 to, let's say, 20% or 20%, then 30%, then 40, then 60, then 50, then 60. So that the farmers can increase, adjust and adapt. I think that we should gradually increase so that beyond half of our public procurement of the food is organic. And that then again leverages the production and the possibilities for food industries to have a separate lines of production for organics. That needs to be reflected on the subsidy side too. That means that the agricultural subsidies should be geared more to transitional costs and be adjusted to the amount of thinking 20, 30 and then up to the 40% of the production within less than 10 years in organic. And by gradually getting the industries, getting the public procurement, getting the consumers and getting the restaurants to use the organic model, I think that we can at last make the breakthrough of organic production in Europe for us. It's better for the animals, it's better for the nature, it's better for the people working in the farms, and it's better for businesses.
We have roughly 1 hour time for this discussion. I would like to keep very discussive. In the end, we will have more time for questions from the audience, but if you have any urgent questions, you are welcome to raise your hand. But first, I would like to have answers from the panelists for a brief question. What is your or your organization's vision of the CAP renewal and the eco schemes? And maybe Johan can start.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. MTKs, well, we have, of course, a lot of aims concerning the CAP reform, but if to mention a few of them, I think we should really look into the ways of simplifying the policy. The farmers need more simplification, and there's been a lot of talk about simplification in the beginning of this process, but when we look at the papers at the moment, I would say that it's mostly about the European Commission simplifying its own work, not the daily work of the farmer. So that's one thing we have to do a lot. We also have to do more on climate, on environmental protection, also on animal welfare. So we have also stated that we would like to make a shift. How big it will be, we'll see, but at least some shift from on the support systems to more developing policy and not just keeping business as usual. We would also like to strengthen the situation of the farmers in the food chain. I think we cannot forget this when talking about agricultural policy, that we need to get more market revenue. We cannot be dependent just on public money. We have to do more on this issue. And fourth is we need to get more young farmers and new entrepreneurs into the business. The situation in Finland is actually quite well from a European perspective, but also in Finland we can see that the age is rising, and quite worrying actually. If you look at the generational renewals, we can see them. They are from compared to last year, they have been down really a lot this year, from roughly about 500 to little over 300 cases of generational renewal. So if this will be the new trend, I think will be a problem with getting new farmers into the business.
Thank you, Johan. What about Anna from the Ministry view?
Thank you for the invitation to come and talk with you today. The Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, as you know, we are in favor of course, of the development of more environment-friendly farming. That's our goal. And you know, as the Article 92 says in the Commission proposal, every CAP plan has to be more focused on the environment, has to deliver more. And that is something that the Commission will have a look at when they will give the agreement to the CAP plan that the Member States will be giving when it's time for that. And as it's come up many times today, the situation vary in different countries. So depending on the size of the Pillar 1, the size of the Pillar 2, the national commitment to put national money in the Pillar 2, the situation for where certain kind of measures are better best way to implement varies from country to country. And as we see it, we have a high budget on the Pillar 2 and a long tradition on it, and we also want to make the simplification that is possible. And that is why the Finnish authorities have a goal to keep the organic farming as high quality as it can be, but in the Pillar 2. We have a long tradition on the system where we do not separate maintenance and conversion, and instead we're separating. We have two different kind of subsidies on only farming and also the having livestock. And we think that is a better way to separate the payments, and because it is very. It's not simple to have the line going between conversion and maintenance, as we I think many of us know. But thank you. We'll have a nice discussion coming, I guess.
Thank you. That was a realistic view. What I know, you're an organic farmer, so how does it sound in your view?
Well, I think that either we are brave in this new CAP reform, or maybe it will be a bit too late, not for environmental reasons only also for social reasons. And speaking as a farmer, I think that it's not only for organic farmers, for all farmers. Yes, but it was not only for organic farmers. Farmers are starting to be seen, or have been seen for the last years, as polluters, poisoners, animal ill-treaters, and we're a bit fed up of that, because we are providing food and we can provide social and environmental services, but we need all the society and also, especially the administration, to come with us and help us on this transition. And I didn't want to intervene earlier with the discussion because I had this chance now, but we are producing food, and concerned farmers and concerned consumers are helping organic farming to grow with strong efforts. Some consumers are paying higher prices even if they don't have high incomes, because they are concerned about environment and health. And we need, but we are also delivering social benefits and global benefits, that these need to be paid by the governments, and especially with agricultural policies. And it's true that we have a lot of differences between countries. I come from the Mediterranean, I come from an island, so even in the Mediterranean we're different. We need the measures to be run at, or decided at regional, local and national level, but we need strong indicators and strong objectives and achievements to goals at an European level. We need to ring-fence budget for environmental and climate measures, and also for organic, no matter in which pillar it is, if it's for Pillar 1 or Pillar 2, as Eric explained before. I agree that we need to ring fence for the whole CAP budget, and it's got to be an ambitious ring fencing. Maybe turn it the other way around, instead of 60% for direct payments, 70% for environment and climate, and the rest for direct payments. And also we need to focus, have a special focus on organic. Member states should have a diagnosis of how the organic sector is and what are the needs, and then decide on which pillar it's better to support them, or maybe on both pillars. I think they can be complementary. And also we need to focus on youth and gender issues, because gender is not even mentioned in the CAP, or is just merely mentioned as organic. So we need to focus on that, because they are very, there's a big unbalance between those conditions, and I think I ran out of time.
Thank you. Nick already gave us a great presentation, and maybe I would ask you how do we in common agricultural policy meet the different needs and circumstances of several member countries?
Yeah, I don't want to repeat everything. I was going to take up the question you were asking the others. I'm not representing an organisation, but I live and work in two opposite extremes of support. So the United Kingdom provides very limited support for organic farming. The Germans are relatively much more generous, and I think there is an issue where the organic movement needs to also think about its autonomy, and there is quite a lot of scope for the movement to take its own initiatives, and we've had to learn through necessity in the United Kingdom to do that, for the industry to work together and do collaborative initiatives and to actually do it themselves, and not rely all the time on government action plans or government support to do it. However, I work in Germany too, because the German government has been very supportive. It has an ambitious action plan for organic farming in Germany, with a 20% target by 2030 for German organic farming. It already provides 30 million euros a year to fund research and information activities for organic farming, which I think is really fundamental, because that research is not only about better production techniques, but also about increasing the environmental and other benefits. And the specific things that we're working on, which I think is relevant to taking this debate forward, the Thunen Institute colleagues, where I work now, prepared at the beginning of the year a comprehensive review of the public benefits of organic farming, looking at all of the research literature and so on. There's a lot, although it's in German at the moment, it is potentially an English edition may be forthcoming, but there is an English summary. There's a lot of evidence that can be built on, and that was very helpful. But the next phase of the work is to look at how you can turn all of that evidence of benefit into public payments, payments for the public benefits that are being created. So actually change the way of funding organic farming from being an income foregone type payment to being one for the benefits. I said in my talk about something that's really complicated, and I wasn't going to go into it. It is really complicated. But I actually think the transformation that is needed to really recognize the benefits that exist and from organic farming, and to make sure that those benefits are paid for, not just compensated for income foregone, but the benefits themselves are paid for, I think is really important, so that there is a real reward to what organic farmers are doing for society, not just compensation for the costs that they're incurring.
Okay, as we hear, there is various challenges but also opportunities. Then more targeted questions. Anna, Finland is now preparing its strategic plan. Can you tell us how far you are in the process at the moment?
Well, we have started the process. As you know, we have had this huge stakeholder workshop issues in the beginning of the year, and now we are preparing this assessment of needs and so on. But we are not yet at the stage where we would say especially what kind of measures we have. We are in the process where we now think of the interventions, and we think of how the whole thing should look like. Because you can't go through details to that. You need to take a look at how the whole structure could be, and because we also have other targets than not only the environmental targets. We have the financial side, we have the social side, the rural areas, and we need to make a plan that takes all these into account. And then after that, we need to also take into account how different things can be done in the most appropriate and simple way through the different instruments. And now the Commission proposal, it has tendency to, it likes to do all these targets through all the measures. And to make it more simple, it is, it would be better to target, to make certain things with certain measures, so that it's easier for everyone to understand, and also much more simple to follow up what we get with all the measures. But then to the timetable. As you know, we got a transitional regulation proposal from the Commission. So our target for when we to give the CAP plan to the Commission is moving further away. Well, we don't want to slow our process. We are going on as fast as we can. These working groups, which have stakeholders participating, they are going through each measures, possibilities in them. And sooner or later we will have first some kind of structure that can be used when the government is thinking of how much money will be allocated to certain type of measures. So that will be the first part of taking a step towards the measures. But probably next spring we know more. We had a target to be very far this autumn, but as these issues are not so very simple, and because even the baseline is all the time changing, and we don't know where these proposals of the regulation, where they will end. The Parliament hasn't said its view is yet, and the negotiation between the Council, the Parliament, and the Commission, they haven't taken place yet. So always when something changes, it might make big changes to our structure. For example, if there would be changes to the conditionality, it would put everything that is built on it, it would put it on a new process. So we can say now that we are at stage X, but when something changes, we move a bit further back again, and then we come further, and so it's like an ongoing process. So you can't at the moment say that now we have fixed this and this and this issue. So, like moving on. Yes.
Could you say how synchronized this is in different countries? So are we in the pace with others?
The Commission, it was the Commission or the Council, I don't remember which, asked the Member States about when they plan to submit their CAP plans. And most Member States, as I remember, said that in the beginning of 21, I guess. But then there was Germany said that in the beginning of 22, because Germany will be the presidency next year, this time of year, it might have some significance. So this transitional regulation that proposal that is in now, it says that it will be 1 year delay, but you never know.
Looking forward. Johan, do you think that the current CAP proposal is moving in the right direction from the future farmers' view?
Tricky question, because as we all know, and as you know, the devil lies hides in the details, and we actually don't know what the final outcome will be on the CAP proposal. So actually what we can do is analyze what the Commission has been proposing, what the discussion is in the Council, and then coming to the Parliament, I would say, if I would like to be nasty, I would say that the Parliament at the moment is a bit kind of a loose cannon. We don't know what will come out of the Parliament, but we of course hope for the best. But I have a bit fear that we might get some more complexity into the CAP reform from the parliament. So I think there are quite good elements in the proposal. And for example, like subsidiarity, giving more power to the member states to decide on the strategic plan is a good thing. But will it work in the end? I'm not very convinced that, for example, the EU Commission would like to give the power away to the member states. They would usually try to hold on to everything what they have. And there's also been a lot of talking about getting rid of all kind of micromanagement and looking more at the result. And there's been a lot of talk of result-based payments. But if you actually look into the paragraphs of the legislation proposal, I think there's still a lot of micromanagement. So we have quite a long way to go to get to where we're actually aiming at. And I think, like for example, there's been a lot of talk of eco schemes here today, and that's kind of a hot potato. And there's a lot of rumors, for example, going on that with eco schemes we could basically do whatever we like. But looking into the detailed regulation, for example, in Annex 2 of the Commission proposal, it says that these eco schemes has to be subjected to WTO regulation, Annex 2, Articles 5, 6, and 12. And if you read them, they are very strict. They actually say that you can only pay for income forgone or extra cost. So there's been a lot of talk that you can do what you like with eco scheme, but if you actually look at what the Commission is proposing, it doesn't say the same. So I think also one big question with this CAP reform is from the EU perspective is that how much should we actually bind ourselves to, for example, WTO agreement and regulation when nobody else seems to be following them. If you look at US or China or Brazil or any other big countries, they don't care so much about WTO anymore. So why should we restrict ourselves so much in the European Union? So, but these are kind of a big political question, and they quite much will affect what the outcome will be. But I think we have good elements on the table, but Commission proposal as such is not what we would look to have, want to have. So we need to do a lot of work on this still.
You mentioned that to support young farmers' position is one of your targets. So could you mention a few examples of that?
Yeah, well, for example, in Finland we have a very good scheme already for getting young farmers into the business with support for setting up the business. We have a bit higher hectare support for young farmers. We also have a higher investment age for young farmers, and I think pretty much the elements are there, but we should look into how much money we would like to use on young farmers. Should, for example, the hectare payments be even bigger than today for young farmers? Should maybe the time for making investments at a higher investment rate, would that also have to be, for example, extended from 5 to 7 years? Things like this to kind of make at least the first 5 to 10 years of young farmers easier and more try to simplify the regulation. So it's a question of money, and of course in many other of these CAP aims, it's pretty much about the question about money. And the funny thing which has always been with EU policy and EU budget is that there's always a talk about let's make the policy first and the money will follow. So, but actually it goes exactly the other way around. First the EU summit with the prime ministers and presidents of EU, they decide on the money, and after that it's just give and take with the policy. So this is of course what we're looking at now, to how much money will we have, and hopefully we'll have it in February or March, the decision from the EU summit. But we have to, at least it looks like we're going to have less money than today. So that, of course, from a farmer's point of view, it's quite hard to nail down exactly what would we like to do and how much money would we like to put on which measure before we actually know how much money we will have to use.
Nick, you started multitasking, but
I was trying to read Annex 2 quickly again, just to catch up with the issues.
I want to ask you, would you like to comment on Johan's mention about the WTO rules?
Yeah, I think this is something that's why I was looking it up. I think it's something I need to think about a bit further because clearly there are constraints in there. I'd worked on the basis that the Commission had worked out a way around that. If that's not the case, then I need to think about it a bit further. So, it's not on. Sorry. It is on now. Okay. So, yeah, I'd understood that because the top-up payment for eco schemes was linked to the basic income for payment for sustainability, that the WTO constraints relating to that were the same. What was clear to me from the Regulation 28 was that the alternative payment method around income foregone that is also possible for eco schemes would have to be on the same basis as for Pillar 2 agri-environment commitments. So I don't think we escape from the income foregone issue in calculating methods, but we do need to think about ways of, on one of the slides I didn't manage to cover in my talk, we do need to think about ways of how we interpret costs incurred more carefully. If we can't pay for a positive return, we can at least maybe identify opportunity costs that should be considered and not just actual costs. And certainly also transaction costs. And I'd say for organic, the example with transaction costs is certification costs, because if certification is required in order for you to participate in the agri-environment scheme, then it's clear that certification costs becomes a transaction cost, which should be therefore part of the costs that are included in the calculation. But there may well be others. If we're looking at measuring the benefits more accurately, then those also become transaction costs. So there may be ways of being more creative about using these frameworks than we have been in the past.
Okay, fine. Would you like to comment on this particular question?
Well, not really.
Okay, then I'm going to ask you that. What do you think are organic farmers going to benefit more of the future CAP than the previous one? The point of view we heard today, it is on.
I hope we will be able to benefit more. It's not so clear at the moment. As you were saying before, she was saying that she would, as somebody who's working with implementing the CAP, she would like to have certain measures achieving certain goals or objectives. We have organic farming achieving the 9 CAP objectives, and it's not even mentioned, and it doesn't have a specific article on organic farming, and it's not clear how it's going to be implemented in the CAPs, in the national plans. Subsidiarity is a good thing to help organic farming. It could be a good thing for organic farming, because that would mean that we take on account the local pedoclimatic conditions and the local culture and the local crops, but it might be a race to the bottom, and if we don't ensure proper goals at an European level, then in some nations and some member states maybe they won't be brave enough and they won't support enough organic farming. So we need to have it mentioned specifically, not only taken as a transversal thing.
Do you think is there enough emphasis on public goods in general?
In the new proposal? Not as it is like right now. The changing the CAP to a result-based CAP, that should think that it would make us change our mind and start looking for what we want to achieve in 7-10 years, as he was saying, for the youth. But if we ring-fence the basic payments with 60% or 70% of the first pillar, then we're not changing many things. If we keep historical rights, we don't make any changes. If we link, even if we link eco schemes, that's the only thing I think I can say about eco schemes. But if we keep them linked to having rights to direct payments, then some crops wouldn't be able to apply for the subsidies. And also, if historical rights stay as they are and eco schemes are linked to having direct payments, that means that only people who have historical rights will have access to eco schemes. And I think that organic farming, at least in my region, is being a solution for lots of young farmers. If we look at the medium age of farmers in organic, in my area is 45 years old, and in conventional farmers is 67. So just think who's farming. So I think it's been an opportunity, not only because of the methods, also because it has helped young farmers to get into farming and being supported by the administration.
From this point of view, question to all of you, that should we more subsidize organic farming methods instead of just certificate organic farming? For example, could we have subsidize for chemical-free farming and agriculture that's open for all, not just for certified organic farming?
Start and then
You can start.
I think that was the idea of the proposal that Lena explained before, so everybody could achieve it. But the problem is that if you do that, organic farming is delivering something else, and then organic farmers won't be able to access that measure, and in the end, organic farmers that are delivering much more benefits, maybe they will get less help or subsidies than others that only do some certain measures.
But of course, it should be open for all people.
Yes, in general, I think there's in organic production you do a lot of practical measures that would be good to get more implemented also into conventional farming. I think conventional farmers has a lot to learn from organic farmers, and I think we should really look into, for example, when it comes to conditionality and also the agri-environmental scheme that could be kind of borrows more from organic farming to try to implement that also in conventional production. But just as a warning, I would say that I think we have to be careful not to create some kind of almost organic or kind of a light organic production, because that on the other side I see quite big challenge that could create kind of an unfair competition in the market with companies or retailers starts to selling this almost organic and at a lower price. So I think we should be quite careful when looking at how the markets are working, that there are no kind of goodwill on the market. It's just business and making money when it comes down to the retail sector. So I think we should be quite careful there not to kind of maybe, we have been thinking about this in Finland also, that should we enable kind of a lighter organic production for farms who has, for example, the fields are organic, but the animal husbandry is conventional. But we've seen the risk with creating kind of market distortion. So I think you have to be very, very careful with this. But one thing I think that could be interesting is to look into the general regulation and rules. And for example, at the moment, organic farms are excluded from quite many measures, for example, concerning animal welfare, etc., because it's kind of it's already in the organic farming, and that's why they can't take part of the program or get support or subsidies for good practices. So I think maybe more look into this issue, but I think we should keep kind of a real organic production as real organic production and not mess it up with creating kind of almost organic production methods.
Yeah, of course, Commission proposal has this conditionality requirements which are higher than in previous CAP, and they are raising the ambition.
Sorry, I forgot one thing that I would like to say. It's when looking at organic production and what should be done, as we saw in the, I think it was in the statistics, or at least mentioned here, that at least in Finland, of the food sold in the retail market, about 2.5% of the products are organic, and although we have 13% of the surface or the fields are organic, so I think if we want to increase organic production, we cannot do it just with more support. We should actually focus a lot more on market promotion and then making kind of a good campaigns, getting the consumers actually to understand what to pay for, and also to look in what Nick said is a calculation that if we the calculation reduces the organic support every time the price goes up, basically I think then we will never get to a good solution. So I think we have to be kind of look into new opportunities when it comes to this calculation, how the costs are calculated, but then also put a lot of effort on promotion and marketing.
And also knowledge of the farmers and the yields.
Yeah, I think this is still working, yes. So I think I've always been interested in the historic Danish experience with supporting organic farming through a zero nitrogen use scheme, which meant that any farmer could apply to work without nitrogen fertilizer. But it was mainly organic farmers that did, because they had to do that anyway. And the whole issue of the market was then not linked in with that support scheme. And I think there are lessons that can still be learned from that experience, which I think is why Organic Denmark have been promoting the idea that eco schemes that could support organic wouldn't be specialist organic schemes, but would be things like nutrient management and climate mitigation and so on. So I think there is scope to do things that could be open to all farmers, but would encourage organic management. While the issue though is how you design those schemes. So, because the other country that did try to do things differently in the past was Sweden, and the Swedish colleagues are here. But there was, for a while at least, in the time when I was working with Samsung on statistics and various other things, a separate inspection scheme was done for policy-supported organic farming that didn't necessarily qualify as certified for marketing the product as organic. And again, I think there is a validity in doing that, but there is equally an administrative cost in doing that. And I wouldn't underestimate that, because it is quite hard, as we know from organic inspection schemes, to come up with a new certification scheme or a new administrative scheme to prove that you're doing it organically. And the reason why most countries have gone for linking certification to the policy support is that it's easy to build on an existing system of regulation and certification. And if you want to set up something different, you need to think about the transaction costs of doing that. I would say that the certification element, it remains essential for the marketing of the product. And actually, as far as I can see, in many countries where there have been attempts to do an organic light type marketing approach, they've not often survived for that many years against sort of consumer confusion and, in the end, consumer preference to stay with something that is now familiar on a longer term. So they come and, certainly in the experience I've had, they've come and gone, whereas organic has stayed. So that might be a relevant thought too.
mentioned nitrogen use, and also devastating numbers of insect losses in Europe, and considering chemical pesticide usage in Europe, we have to remember that we do have plant protection directives and national legislation, but at the moment they're not very well controlled. Maybe we may ask from the audience if you have any comments or questions.
I might have also. Maybe you didn't want to hear the administration. What do you think? What the Commission thinks is that all our farmers should be moving towards a more environmentally friendly direction. So you see a higher level conditionality. You see the greening measures moving away from the first pillar to the conditionality to be paid by the farmers on their own expense. The ground level is high rising. So you have a brand in organic farming. Every Finn knows what Luomu is. So that's the added value you have for marketing. When all the others are catching up, you will also have to do more to keep your brand, to keep it that little something extra. So because we know what organic farming consists of. We know the practices that you use. We could separate it to put all those practices in small pieces and push our farmers towards that. We wouldn't actually need the brand, but you need the brand for marketing. And if we make a brand on the side of it, as you say, it would probably come and go. But what is really happening is that all our farmers are pushed towards the same goal. And that's also why organic farming also needs to do more. And as we have heard here, we have a very high percentage of grassland in our organic area. It's almost 70%. Before we talk very much about just getting more area, we also should take a look at what is produced on this area, because as you heard Sirpa Pietikäinen saying, she was very focused on what the retailers do, what the public procurement is, and that is about the product that comes from organic farming. Even though she knows, and we all know about the environmental value, all the other things that we get from organic farming. What the market sees is the product, and if we can't deliver the product, we will also lose the benefit of having a brand.
Thank you, and sorry about missing. As an organic farmer, I have to say that I would like to see organic standards raised higher to stay in the game from this point of view. But now, audience, do you have any comments or questions? Please, there is one.
Reijo Käki, yhdistyneet luomutuottajat. I don't like this idea that in Finland we only have 3% product comes to the market. That's not right, because in that number there is no grain, cereals and we product quite a lot of cereals, oats, and that's is marketed in other countries, and that's not including that number 3. So we are getting much more. This money what is giving for organic farmers, so we get much more products, but they are not selling in Finnish consumers. They go to the organic animals and they go to other countries. That should include that number, and that's what they have done so long that only 3 comes, and then they say 7% is grass. But that's something what it's more environmental support. It's not organic. And we have proposed that this 70% for grassland, we should use more environmental support and organic support. Is that something that comes to the market? I think that's why we need ecosystem.
Would you like to comment, Arno?
Well, you are now talking about a subsidy that would be based on the production, and for that the VTO limits are quite low. If you would like to move organic production more in a way that we would support for products as such, then we would need to have a much higher limit for the couple support payments.
Yes, I think it's true that the statistics may not tell the whole truth, and I know that, for example, quite a lot of organic oats are being exported, and that's of course good, but even better would be if the oats would be processed in Finland, and there would be kind of a ready oats product that would be exported, not the oats as such, but that's a different question. But if we're looking, I actually have a question for the audience. If we're thinking about what's actually the most important thing when thinking about the future of organic production. I'm not an organic producer myself. I do quite a lot of measures on my farm that are similar to organic production, but I'm not certified. But you as organic farmers, what do you actually, would you like if you look like 10 years ahead? Would you like more support, or would you like more money from the market? So I think to look, we also have to think of what are we actually aiming at. Just putting more support into, for example, organic grassland, that might not be the solution in the long run. So I think this is one thing we also have to look into. What is the long-term perspective, not just to set the next programming period?
Well, concerning what was said before and what we've been discussing about that gap between production and consumption, I think that maybe the numbers are not right, but also the interpretation is not right for me. What I would suggest is to invest more in sensibilization, in concerning consumers, concerning the market about how products are produced. But also it is quite difficult to invest in real campaigns where you inform consumers that if you eat organic local products and you go for agroecological local food systems, all the goals you are achieving. I mean, if we could get money from the CAP to invest in social concern, or to inform about the benefits of consuming organic, social, environmental and personal benefits, and also to really inform farmers, then the gap would reduce. And also for the question he asked, I'll answer as a Spanish part-time farmer and part of the IFOAM farmers. We really want organic production to grow, because we believe in what that means for the whole society, and individually we want our products to be sold as a proper price, not necessarily a really high price. I don't want an elite to consume my products. I want everybody to be able to eat them. And if that means that I need help from the administration to pay for the other benefits or the other services I'm delivering, then I think the administration has to pay for them. But my consumers have to pay the right price for what they're eating, not a high price. Now I won't speak anymore.
Yeah, we should see public goods as a product.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, just on this, the large proportion of grassland in organic farming is often mentioned, and then I compare that with the national statistics for farming in general and find out that actually national farming also has a large proportion of grassland. So maybe we're not so different from I don't know what the Finnish statistics are, but certainly we have 70% organic grassland in the of organic in the UK, and actually we have 70% of grassland in agriculture in the UK. So it's not such a big difference, even if it impacts in the way the market is. So I think we need to be sometimes cautious about how self-critical we are when we're looking at our achievements in terms of engaging with farmers in all different sectors. I think this problem about oh no, okay, I lost it again. Okay, I'll leave it.
Okay, thank you. That won't really pick up, and you have a question, maybe.
Yes, in terms of what happens in Portugal and about these things, what I would like to say is we like more to have in 10 years, we like more to support organic production, in real organic production goes to the market. Because what we see in my country, it happens the same problem with the pastures. We have the pastures in organic, but at the end we don't have the meat in the shops. And in some time of the production, the animals go to the conventional. And in fact, we are supporting organic pastures and somehow organic animals, but at the end, that animals ends in the conventional shop selling as conventional meat. This is something that I'm sure that is wrong for me, but we have to have more production, organic production, in the shelves of the shops, because that's what people want. And in fact, Europe import much products for outside. And if you look to the consumers in my country wants more vegetables. This is a trend. Vegetables, more fruits. And we import all of outside. We have to invest more, try to see how to improve this type of productions too. How we can deliver at the end more this type of products in the market, but rich as organic products. Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question about ecological body. I would like to ask you, would it be possible to control conventional farming for using less chemicals in their farms? We would get benefit, for example, subsidies for that. Who would control them and how would you control? Would it be possible to control? Because, for example, ecological farming, organic farming, they have certifying bodies. They must get certificate to sell their product as an organic. So therefore, the consumer knows that what's been done, there's no chemicals at all. How it's possible to control conventional farming for using a little bit less chemicals, for example? Is it possible?
Like I mentioned, we do have a directive of land protection and also national legislation about that, but from my point of view, it's not controlled very well. But what do you think? You as a conventional farmer has some experience.
I guess everything is possible to control, but basically, if we have enough people doing the controls and they are strict enough, but I think the question, do we want this kind of system? I think we have enough controls already. already today. So I think if we would like to have kind of a system for using less pesticides or chemicals on conventional farming, it should be some kind of quality system that is being audited by third parties. So not kind of this state or government-led control. And I don't think that's not very, because at least that would be much easier to. I think also otherwise I think it's something for conventional farmers to look into, to also in that case take a step closer to organic farming in having kind of or have the possibility to join some kind of quality scheme with a third party audit that could kind of give you a higher, some kind of what do you call it? Well, give you kind of a higher status than that you can use for marketing, but to have this kind of it's of course it's difficult. How do you guarantee 100% that an organic farmer doesn't use chemicals? He can get caught in the control, but if he doesn't get caught, then how do you?
Seeds out of the ground, right?
Yeah, but I guess you could do the same also for conventional farmers. But how accurate are they? Do we really want this kind of control system?
Okay. Simplification is one of the main. Would you like to add? Sorry.
Yeah. Everything can be controlled, but what is the cost, and if it's reasonable, and if there are certain reasons why certain kind of measures are not implemented. And this is one thing, that there are certain things that are very, very difficult to control. In organic farming, this not using pesticides is controlled in a certain way, and of course a similar kind of system could be applied to anyone. But it would have cost, it would need to be a new kind of system, and I don't think that we would like to do such a system. And then there's the other point. If you're just reducing the use of pesticides, it might end up in using less pesticides so that the weeds won't die. And that then we will be causing resistance. So it's not, if you just make a measure that, well, you use smaller amounts of pesticides, it might end up in bigger problems through this resistance thing. But I think there are reasons why we have a kind of system of organic farming and not a certain kind of measures of decreasing something a bit.
Many organic farming methods helps avoiding pesticides, also conventional agriculture. That's something to use. Maybe I can see your question later on. And now I move on simplification is one of the main targets of the Commission proposal and also hope for the farmers. So, Nick, you have an answer to question that with all these targets, is it possible to have a simple cap system?
I don't think you want to talk about simplification.
Right. I think the question about simplification is to maybe be a bit more imaginative. And there is a philosophy or a belief amongst agricultural economists that the best policy making is where you have a single measure for a single objective. That you focus very much on targeted schemes and try to use that as a way of simplifying the process. The work that I've done with colleagues in Switzerland and so on indicates that actually the base of delivering environmental benefits could be more efficiently produced by having multi-objective measures like organic farming or other agroecological schemes, and then using targeted measures to fill in the gaps where there is a need on top of that. And because if you think about it, if an organic farmer is delivering on 8 or 9 different objectives, does it make sense for them to apply to 8 or 9 different schemes to deal with each of the objectives that they're dealing with? Or is it actually much more efficient and simpler just to have a single scheme that allows everything to be dealt with? But of course, they won't be delivering any of them at peak, they won't be delivering necessarily the very specialist focus that some targets might want to have. So I think you need a mixed economy of approaches in order to get that simplification and to use initiatives like certification as a helping hand in that process. I fear that the I think quite appropriate focus on the outputs that people deliver rather than the inputs doesn't necessarily lead to simplification, because you need to be able to measure the outputs that are being delivered. And how do you measure that? There's quite a good reason why organic standards unfortunately are focused excessively on input use, because it's much easier to audit. And equally, the whole WTO income foregone calculation is also focused quite often around inputs rather than outputs, because they're easier to check and measure. So I'm not sure that moving to measuring benefits is a appropriate thing, except if, again, when you're thinking about it, you can say, well, actually, in this area, we have a lot of research evidence. So rather than trying to prove that every single farm is delivering the outputs, we could say the group of farmers working in this area, which is supported by research evidence, can be taken to be delivering those benefits and to work on that basis. So I think we have to be willing to think about other ways of identifying outputs than just thinking about measuring it directly, because measuring directly is going to be a very expensive way forward. And then the last point about simplification that I would make strongly is there has to be a way of coordinating between all the different agencies that have an interest in inspecting what a farmer is doing, and simplifying that process so that one inspection might fulfill several purposes rather than having 5 or 6 different inspections necessary to cover quite often similar ground. There has to be some room for simplification there.
Thank you.
Yes, I think one possibility for simplification might be to try to focus more on the results and get better technology to measure the results. I think, for example, satellite technology might be something that we can get some results out of from in the future. But of course, we don't have all the technology today. But I think we're looking here also 10 or 15 years ahead. I think we can do more with technology and have this better measurement instruments. But as Nick said, if we have a policy with 9 objectives, and then we might have 2 or 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 different measures for every objective, then it's very hard to make it very simple. I think I don't actually remember how many different support systems we have in Finland, but I think it's, if I say 27 or 30 or something, then it's
not enough.
Yeah, that's not enough, but maybe 37. But
depending how you
but if this is a situation, and every support system has a bit different kind of rules and regulation and controls, so it's not very easy to simplify this kind of combination. I think we should also try to cut down the number of measurements and really try to focus on what's most important, and also I think if you look then on the other hand on a European EU perspective, I think we should also do a lot more on creating some kind of level playing field across the whole Europe, because the differences between member states are huge today, and so I think that could also be a way of simplifying, to have more the same kind of policy in different countries, and also that way maybe it could be easier to monitor the results from a kind of bigger perspective.
As you can guess, in the administration we've been thinking a lot of what is simplification. And simplification is a different thing for different parts of the process. In the Commission view, the simplification is, for example, only one CAP plan for each country. Well, that is not the simplification for Finland, to put in one plan both Åland Islands and and mainland. But from the Commission view, that was a simplification. And then, for example, having only certain measures that could be monitored from the satellite. It would be a simplification for those who make the controls. But it would not be a simplification for those who are making such measures that have some kind of impact. For example, you can monitor all things. If you are making measures from the point of view of monitoring, there's a lot of things that you have to accept that you can't ask for. For example, you can't monitor how much for some smaller area. It must be huge enough that you can see it. And certain practices can be monitored. For example, have you taking things or have you have you harvested the yield, or have you just cut it down? You can see it from the satellite at the moment. And for example, if you would like to have some kind of area with a lot of different kinds of plants, you can see it from the satellite. But for the control, making the control of the satellite would be nice because they don't need to drive to the farm and don't need to walk there in the rain and so on. And then for the farmer's perspective, what is simple? It's simple that you don't have to apply for so very many kind of different measures, for example. You don't have to read so many different kind of systems rules. That might be simple. It might be simple that you don't have so many commitments, or, for example, the controllers don't come so very often. And this kind of, so depending on whose perspective you take, you get different kind of targets on what you should simplify. And that's the point of why it's so difficult to simplify, for one reason. The other is it's difficult to simplify because when we want more to be done, they are always more targeted, then it's also more control and so on.
Just shortly.
Yeah, very short. I don't think it's. I agree with you, lady, of what you said. If you change the point of view from the measure to what the farm is doing, and you start monitoring the farm, and when the farmer applies for the CAP subsidies, you can select the kind of measures you are going to make in your own farm, and then you have some of the measures that you can monitor by satellite, others you can monitor by making inspections to a certain percentage.
It's not simplified for the controllers.
No, it is because for many of the measures you are the controllers are only inspecting and controlling 5 or 10% of the farms, and if you take that 5% from one measure, add it to 5% of another measure, and you can. I think that usually controllers visit 25-30% of the farms receiving measures from Pillar 2. Not direct payments, measures from Pillar 2. They end up visiting a lot of farms, and so it's like just changing the way that you ask for the. You have only one form asking for all the measures you will be applying for.
Thank you. It sounds like this.
Well, we are not going to 25% of our farms. We have simplified that.
Yeah, this discussion will end up here, but we have 5 minutes for final conclusion, a few questions. It's on the order. Okay, I would actually like to participate in discussion for radical simplicity because I'm a really simple person. So, the satellite imagery, and Nick's comment on the side that since organic farming ticks so many boxes or many of the objectives, it's better to focus on things which catch many objectives rather than single outcomes. But I think that very many of the objectives are actually linked to photosynthesis.
how much we catch sunlight and convert that into something useful, which is basically the farmer's job. And satellite imagery is already there to monitor for that. So kind of a radical suggestion would be to test what kind of a subsidy scheme would happen if every farmer would be paid €1 for every day that the field hectare is green. That would kind of tick a lot of the boxes. And the data is already there in a research project that I'm involved in. I just sent the GPS coordinates for 40 fields to the satellite data center, and now they're humming along, giving the NDVI's sums for each of those fields, like as we speak. So it's simple.
We are moving forward. And then another question.
Hey, my name is Britta Suokasen. I come from southern south of Finland, and I'm a leader of the one part of the Organic Farmers and Consumers Society. And my question is even simpler. Do you already know, is it mandatory to harvest the next crop?
And one word answer is enough. False word.
Maybe.
Or definitely maybe. 2 words.
2 words only. No, maybe briefly on this market remuneration versus public support. I mean, why do we have a cap in the first place in Europe? We are very lucky to have a cap. If we didn't have a cap, in a globalized market pushed by the WTO, where farmers have to compete with poultry from South America, it will just be intensive farming everywhere. We will not have any more farming in mountains and things like that. So we need a cap, but how is the price fixed? You know, all the impacts of intensive farming, they are not seen in the price when consumers buy a product. You know, all the water pollution, all the soil destruction, all the loss of biodiversity. This is not taken into account into the price, and still farmers get cap money, which is public money, which is taxpayers' money as well. So it's normal that there are expectations from European citizens on what farmers deliver with this public money as well, and. As it was said, organic farming delivers on many fronts, so it's legitimate that organic farmers get support from the cap. It would be unfair that only organic consumers, the ones willing to pay more, contribute to encouraging farming systems which are better for the environment. And of course, in an ideal world, we would like a system where all farmers, be they organic, conventional, agroecology, whatever, would get money on the basis of their efforts and contribution to the environment and public goods. But we are not there yet, so we believe that we need support for organic farming, and on top of that we need mechanisms like eco schemes which allow all farmers, organic or conventional, to receive payments on the basis of the measures they take. If you don't use nitrogen at all, either if you're organic or not, you should receive more cap subsidies than if you don't. Because otherwise we just have, you know, a system which is untargeted, where money is just given for farmers with no condition attached, and that will be a very simple system. But we know that the cap is under threat, the budget is already reducing, the next cap will apply for the next 10 years, maybe up until 2029, and there at this point, if there is no change, maybe the Commission will have a good reason to say we stop with the cap or we cut the budget in two because you have not delivered on the environment as well. So I mean, it's very nice to see that we have all speakers agreeing on the fact that the cap needs to do more for the environment, and maybe I would like to know, because you mentioned the CAP strategic plan in Finland. Could you tell us a bit more in what are the needs that you have identified in the needs assessment, and which measures could be put in place in Finland in this first pillar, for example, so that farmers can do, so that farmers who do more for the environment get more of the payments?
Well, as I said, the CAP plan is still an ongoing process, so we'll see what it will end up. this assessment of needs and SWOT analysis and so on, it's not a new thing for us. We have done it for the rural development program so far, and now the needs are the same. Thank you. The needs are very much the same, even though we have more tools for those needs. And when looking at the whole CAP plan, we of course have the financial needs of the farmers, we have the needs of the young farmers, we have the environmental needs, and as you know, the CAP process is not a process going on its own. We have the Water Framework Directive, and which has resulted in national plans for water protection. So there already we see what the needs are. We have a biodiversity strategy with implementing measures. So we see there what is expected on that level. We have national legislation on pesticides, for example, and nutrients, and we have targets through these water framework water management plans that we don't have to invent things from scratch or from nothing. So we also have all the climate change strategies and legislation going on and getting measures from there. So it's more like we know many things that should be done, and we have to see what CAP can be part of from those. Of course, if we put all those needs together and put a price for it, it will be so huge that the CAP in such, if we couldn't deliver every target to the last point. So we will have we don't have to invent the needs or the measures. We just have to take a look what the CAP can do of all that already is proposed. So does it?
Yeah. For which type of interventions, for example?
Sorry?
Which types of intervention, for example?
Well, we have probably going in for a very broad scale of interventions. So, but also trying to focus on such interventions where we can reach more than one target with one intervention. Well, that's in the EU perspective, that's not a good thing to do, because when we have to target these measures to some indicators, we can always only target on, for example, this measure is for water protection. So it's not nationally. In the EU perspective, it's not a good thing to make multi-targeted measures. But we still think that multi-target measures are those that will deliver more for us. And now, for example, organic farming is a multi-targeted measure, but also there are measures on climate and water protection that go the same direction. And of course, that will be the kind of measures that we will focus on. And investments are very, very needed, because investment doesn't always mean that it's the farming is now intensified and is going the wrong direction. We can also make good investments with some more environment friendly. We can use targeted measures for how we use our input and so on. But at this stage, I will not tell a certain measure with certain details and now this will go this way. We are not in that point yet.
Yes, looking at the Finnish situation, I think it's it's not fair to look just at the first pillar, because the situation in Finland is that we have double the amount of money in the rural development program as we have in the first pillar. So you actually should look at the first and the second pillar together. That's one reason why Finland also is driving to have just 1% for this environmental and climate measure, because it actually the climate doesn't care if it's done through the first or the second pillar. But I think, as Anna said, we have been doing this for 20 years roughly, so we have quite a lot of experience, and we are also already doing quite a lot. So I think it's maybe more a question of looking into what should be the baseline and what should be the most important measure that we might focus more, and maybe should try to drop some measures out that hasn't kind of been very successful or very widely used in the previous programming periods. But at the end of the day, the tricky question will be that when we have a problem with profitability and low income on farms, so how do we make what's the solution to the problem with making more work and getting less money, and how to at the same time get the profitability up on the farm? So I think that's just kind of a realism we have to look into, that also maybe try to find more cost-efficient measures, so that and of course the calculation issue of what are the support for different measures, how are they calculated? That will also be, at least from a farmer's point of view, that's a very important question, to get more incentive for farmers to do more than today.
Thank you. So we went on time to give last thought to me and Aina. Could you maybe answer could we meet these targets without taking advantage on eco schemes?
Okay, it's on. No, it is on. I think eco schemes are an opportunity, but we've obviously have survived the last 20 years by doing without eco schemes. So the answer is, can we do without eco schemes? Yes, because we've done it for 20 years. But I actually think, one of my fears is that we now focus on results and objectives and so on. I think that's right, but we also need to be aware that there are often trade-offs between the different approaches we use. But might be synergies too, but there are often conflicts. So we come up with very nice policies for climate change, but actually they could have negative impacts on animal welfare, for example. It might be good to have our animals housed all year round and never out on the field, but in an animal welfare context, that's a bad outcome. So I think we need a system that allows us to really consider how what we're aiming at one objective is impacting on the other objectives that we also think are important. How do we make the most of those, or deal with the trade-offs, but also make the most where we can get potential synergies? And I think the synergies are one of the other advantages of multi-objective or multifunctional type schemes, that we get synergies because we're working together on several different things simultaneously. The one last point I'll just make very quickly is, in terms of recognizing what is being delivered, we have within the organic sector a huge data resource that is being collected by the control bodies every year, shows what has changed on farms over a period of years, and we do nothing with it. I think there is a real need for the control bodies and the organic movement to think about, can we make much more effective use of that data to demonstrate what is being delivered by organic farming?
And just to add very briefly, what Nick just said, I think that monitoring CAP at a farm level would make it possible to visit all farms in the period of 7-10 years. So in the end of the period, you would have like a diagnosis of what's being done at each farm, and every 20 years you would have the result of how it has evolved and the evolution of those farms. So I don't think it's that difficult. We can joint simplification with farm monitoring. And as Nick said, I think that eco schemes are an opportunity. I mean, whether you have more or less budget in it because you have more budget in the second pillar, I don't think that's important, but some eco schemes should be settled at national level because in each member state, because they are an opportunity that we will be losing it now.
Thank you for all of our great panelists. As we have heard, it's complicated to answer for all the requirements set, at least in a simple way. Nevertheless, it was recognized that at least in the long perspective, both the environment and the farmer could benefit from an ambitious agricultural policy. Thank you. It's time for lunch.